26-130. The shooting in Chalice Recording Studios confirmed Mr. Combs' statements. 131. These statements reinforced Mr. Jones's fear of Mr. Combs and strengthened Mr. Combs' dominion and control of Mr. Jones. 132. Mr. Jones was terrified of Mr. Combs. He felt like he could not tell him. Number 133. Mr. Combs consistently made it clear that he has immense power in the music industry and with law enforcement. 134. Mr. Combs made it clear that his head of security, Faheem Mohammed, Mr. Mohammed, had the power to make people and problems disappear. Case 1:24 CV 01457 Document 1 filed February 26, 24 page 26 of 73. 27. Faheem Mohammed 135. Mr. Combs instructs his staff to always contact Mr. Mohammed if they are ever pulled over by the police in Miami or California. 136. Upon information and belief, Mr. Mohammed spoke with the LAPD after G was shot at CRS. The LAPD was in CRS and witnessed the blood in the restroom, and they went with the bogus claim that the shooting of G occurred outside of the studio. This was all thanks to Mr. Mohammed's connections within law enforcement. 137. Mr. Jones had no reason to disbelieve Mr. Combs as he had seen firsthand through the shooting of G and the subsequent silence of the LAPD and the media that Mr. Combs indeed had the power to harm him. 138. The LAPD spent hours in CRS after the shooting of G, yet there were no arrests. Mr. Jones witnessed the LAPD in the restroom pictured above, yet no arrests were made. 139. The morning after the shooting, Mr. Jones and several others arrived at CRS and G's blood was still on the floor of the restroom, and Mr. Combs hired a cleaning crew to clean it up. Defendants Ethiopia Havdemariam, Lucian Charles Grange, Motown Records, Love Records, and Universal Music Group aided, abetted, and profited off of Sean Combs. Rico Enterprise 140. Mr. Jones recalls seeing defendant Grange 15 visiting Mr. Combs' home in Miami, Florida, and Los Angeles, California. 15. TikTok is one of the most important short video platforms in the world. It has a significant impact on the spread of global music. Today it is believed that artists are paying more and more attention to producing music suitable for dissemination on TikTok. Due to failed contractual renewal negotiations between Universal and TikTok, a lot of music. Case 1:24 CV 01457 Document 1 filed February 26, 24 page 27 of 73. 28. 141. According to Mr. Jones, whenever defendant Grange visited Mr. Combs at his homes, it would be in the evening, and he and Mr. Combs would disappear for hours in Mr. Combs' bedroom. 142. Defendant Grange sponsored and attended several Love album listening parties at Mr. Combs' home in Los Angeles, California. These parties were sponsored by defendants MR, LR, and UMG. As evidence above, these parties had sex workers and underage girls present. 143. During these parties, defendant Grange knew or should have known that Mr. Combs was drugging the attendees through laced bottles of De Leon tequila and Ciroc vodka. 144. It is no secret that Mr. Combs had specific bottles of alcohol designated for females, and other bottles designated for his staff, his artists, and himself. This fact was detailed by former artists and bodyguards of Mr. Combs. 145. As a sponsor of these events, defendant Grange had a duty and obligation to ensure that sex workers and underage girls were not present, and that Mr. Combs was not spiking the alcohol with date rape drugs. 146. On YouTube channel, The Art of Dialogue, former bodyguard Gene Deal exposed Mr. Combs' pill mixing method used to spike cranberry juice and orange juice. According to Mr. Deal, Mr. Combs would place ecstasy and other date rape drugs in the juices. 16. 147. On YouTube, The Art of Dialogue, former artist Mark Curry exposed Mr. Combs spiking bottles of Moët champagne in the VIP section of nightclubs. Mr. Combs would have a set of Moët champagne bottles for his artists, and a set for women. 17. Had to be removed from TikTok. This comes from the alleged lack of protection TikTok takes to ensure UMG artists' rights and creativity is preserved as well as fair compensation. On the contrary, it has been alleged that the renewal failed due to UMG's own financial agenda and putting their interest first before the artist. This move has cost artists affected huge opportunities to further their growth and development within their art, as well as huge financial loss. However, UMG will still continue to profit off these artists whether their music will be released back to TikTok or not. 16 https://youtube.be/mfip8b2ideg $SIVVM397WMKXLNBHO-17 https://youtube.be/pjvhfwmqw $SI6-5_W6EVMGP_AI0 case 1:24CV01457 document 1 filed February 26, 24 page 28 of 73. 29 148. This writer has spoken with several former employees of Mr. Combs who witnessed defendant Coram instruct her staff to lace champagne, De Leon, and Ciroc liquor bottles with ecstasy and other illicit drugs. 149 Mr. Jones recalls seeing defendant Habta Mariam visiting Mr. Combs' home in Miami, Florida, and Los Angeles, California. 150 According to Mr. Jones, whenever defendant Habta Mariam visited Mr. Combs at his homes, it would be in the evening, and she and Mr. Combs would disappear for hours in Mr. Combs' bedroom. 151 According to Mr. Jones, defendant Habta Mariam visited Mr. Combs at defendant CRS during Mr. Combs' writing camp. 152 Defendant Habta Mariam sponsored and attended several Love album listening parties at Mr. Combs' home in Los Angeles, California. These parties were sponsored by defendants MR, LR, and UMG. As evidence above, these parties had sex workers and underage girls present. 153 During these parties, defendant Habta Mariam knew or should have known that Mr. Combs was drugging the attendees through laced bottles of De Leon tequila and Ciroc vodka. 154 As a sponsor of these events, defendant Habta Mariam had a duty and obligation to ensure that sex workers and underage girls were not present, and that Mr. Combs was not spiking the alcohol with date rape drugs. Defendant Christina Coram is the Ghislaine Maxwell to Sean Combs' Jeffrey Epstein. 155. According to Mr. Jones, during the 13 months he lived and traveled with Mr. Combs, he witnessed Mr. Combs display and distribute guns from his bedroom closet in Miami, Florida and Los Angeles, California to questionable individuals dressed in all black. Case 1:24 CV01457 document 1 filed February 26, 24 page 29 of 73. 3156. According to Mr. Jones, during the 13 months he lived and traveled with Mr. Combs, he witnessed defendant Coram openly order her assistants to keep Mr. Combs high off gummies and pills. 18. 157 Defendant Coram required all employees from the butler, the chef to the housekeepers, to walk around with a pouch or fanny pack filled with cocaine, GHB, ecstasy, marijuana gummies, 250 mgs each, and Tussie, a pink drug that is a combination of ecstasy and cocaine. TUCI 158. It was important to defendant Coram to have Mr. Combs' drug of choice immediately ready when he asks for it. 159 Defendant Coram ordered sex workers and prostitutes for Mr. Combs. 160 Defendant Coram ordered and distributed ecstasy, cocaine, GHB, ketamine, marijuana, and mushrooms to Mr. Combs and his celebrity guests who were present on his rented yacht, and in his homes in LA, NYC, and Miami. 161 On multiple occasions, Defendant Coram forced Mr. Jones to carry Mr. Combs' drug pouch against his will. 162 As the Chief of Staff, Defendant Coram was instrumental in organizing and executing the RICO enterprise. Defendant Coram had the following individuals execute the following tasks for the RICO enterprise. A Stevie J. recruits sex workers and attends and participates in freak-offs. 19. B. Justin Combs solicits prostitutes, underage girls, and sex workers. Would engage in freak-offs. C. Brendan Paul works as Mr. Combs' mule. He acquires and distributes Mr. Combs' drugs and guns. 18. We have a recording of this and will provide it to the court. 19. We have a video of Mr. Combs, Stevie J, and Plaintiff Jones at a strip club. Mr. Combs is recording the video while coaching and training Plaintiff Jones how to recruit the sex workers. Case 1:24 CV01457 Document 1 filed February 26, 24 page 30 of 73. 31 Brendan Paul and Mr. Combs D. Frankie Santella 20, works alongside Brendan. While Brendan acquires, and distributes, Mr. Combs' drugs, and guns. Frankie carries the money and pays for the guns and drugs. Frankie Santella and Sean Combs Moy Bon, hires sex workers, attends and participates in freak-offs. 20 Vice President of Music Management and Strategic Partnerships Vice President of Music Management and Strategic Partnerships, Combs Global. Case 1:24 CV01457 Document 1 filed February 26, 24 page 31 of 73. 32 Moy Bon, Thanksgiving 2022 when Mr. Combs offered Mr. Jones cocaine. 163 Mr. Combs funded and used his affiliation with local gangs and gang leaders 21 who would frequent his homes in LA and Miami to secure the drugs and guns he obtained and distributed out of his homes in LA and Miami. 164 defendants executed their RICO enterprise with threats of violence, threatening to eat plaintiffs' face, displaying and distributing guns in plaintiffs' presence, bragging about having law enforcement under control, bragging about murdering people, and bragging about bribing witnesses and jurors in the criminal case concerning the 1999 NYC nightclub shooting with Shine. 165 defendants executed their RICO enterprise with threats of isolation from the music and entertainment industry, parading powerful music industry executives such as defendants Lucian Charles Grange, Ethiopia Habtemariam at his parties filled with sex workers, minors, and illegal drugs, such as ecstasy, cocaine, GHB, ketamine, marijuana, and mushrooms. 166 defendants executed their RICO enterprise with threats of non-payment for work completed, fake promises of cash payments, $250,000, Producer of the Year Grammy Awards, and guaranteed access to future projects, and a $20 million home on Star Island in Miami. 21 plaintiff has intentionally left the names and images of these individuals out of the pleading out of fear of retaliation. Case 1:24 CV01457 Document 1 filed February 26, 24 page 32 of 73. 33 Mr. Combs is allowed to wreak havoc 167. While living and traveling with Mr. Combs, Mr. Jones discovered that Mr. Combs has hidden cameras in every room of his homes. 168 Mr. Jones believes that Mr. Combs has recordings of defendants Lucian Charles Grange, Ethiopia Habtemariam, as well as other celebrities, music label executives, politicians, and athletes. 169 Upon information and belief. These individuals were recorded without their knowledge and consent, and as is the case with the homosexual sex tape of Stevie J that Mr. Combs provided to Mr. Jones, Mr. Combs possesses compromising footage of every person that has attended his freak-off parties, and his house parties. 170 Upon information and belief, due to this treasure trove of evidence he has in his possession, Mr. Combs believes that he is above the law and is untouchable. 171 Upon information and belief, Mr. Combs employs Jose Cruz as his IT director. This writer has spoken to several former employees of Mr. Combs, who confirmed that Jose Cruz is the gatekeeper to all of Mr. Combs' recordings. 172 Upon information and belief, Jose Cruz intentionally hides behind the camera, and from social media and the internet. Due to all of the incriminating acts he was required to record for Mr. Combs. Case 1:24 CV01457 Document 1 filed February 26, 24 page 33 of 73. 34 First cause of action: conduct and participate in a RICO enterprise through a pattern of racketeering activity, violation of Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organization Act, codified at 18 U.S.C. 1962, A, C, D, against defendants Lucian Charles Grange, Ethiopia Habtemariam, Sean Combs, Justin Combs, Christina Coram, Combs Global, Motown Records, Love Records, and Universal Music Group. 173 Mr. Jones incorporates by reference all preceding paragraphs and realleges them as if set forth fully herein. 174 As Respondent Superior, defendants Lucian Charles Grange, Ethiopia Habtemariam, Combs Global, Motown Records, Love Records, and Universal Music Group, the Respondent Superior Collective, are 100% liable for the actions of Sean Combs, Justin Combs, Christina Coram as they were acting in their capacities as the Respondent Superior Collective's employees when they committed the acts detailed below. The Respondent Superior Collective failed to adequately monitor, warn, or supervise the actions of Sean Combs, Justin Combs and Christina Coram. 175 defendants are individuals and/or entities within the meaning of person as defined in 18 U.S.C. 1961, 3, because each is capable of holding, and does hold, a legal or beneficial interest in property. The association is composed of Lucian Charles Grange, Ethiopia Habtemariam, Sean Combs, Justin Combs, Christina Coram, Combs Global, Motown Records, Love Records, Universal Music Group, John and Jane Does 1 to 10, and ABC Corporations 1 to 10. 176 Section 1962, A, makes it unlawful for any person who has received any income derived, directly or indirectly, from a pattern of racketeering activity or through a collection of an unlawful debt in which such person has participated as a principal within the meaning of Section 2, Title 18, United States Code, to use or invest, directly or indirectly, any part of such income, or the proceeds of such income, in the acquisition of any interest in, or the establishment or operation of, any enterprise which is engaged in, or the activities of which affect interstate or foreign commerce. 18 U.S.C. 1962, A. 177 Section 1962, C, makes it unlawful for any person employed by or associated with any enterprise engaged in, or the activities of which affect interstate or foreign commerce, to conduct or participate, directly or indirectly, in the conduct of such enterprises' affairs through a pattern of racketeering activity. 18 U.S.C. 1962, C. Case 1:24 CV 01457 Document 1 filed February 26, 24 page 34 of 73. 35 178. Section 1962, D, makes it unlawful for any person to conspire to violate Section 1962, A, and C, among other provisions. 18 U.S.C. 1962, D. 179 defendants are associated with each other as an enterprise within the meaning of enterprise as defined in 18 U.S.C. 1961, 4. 180 defendants have unlawfully increased their profits by luring and deceiving producers, musicians, writers, creators, and artists such as plaintiff to transport drugs, ecstasy, cocaine, GHB, ketamine, marijuana, and mushrooms, transport firearms, solicit minors, exotic dancers, sex workers, and to utilize their talents and labor to produce music, and other tangible goods and services without compensation. 181 The RICO enterprise, which all defendants have engaged in, and the activities of which affected interstate and foreign commerce, is comprised of an association, in fact, of persons, including each defendant and other unnamed co-conspirators. That association, in fact, was structured by various contracts and non-contractual relationships between the defendants, by which defendants assumed different roles in agreeing to carry out a mail and wire fraud scheme to acquire drugs, firearms, prostitutes, minors, sex workers, and the labor of producers, musicians, writers, creators, and artists such as plaintiff to utilize their talents and labor to produce music, and other tangible goods and services without compensation. 182 The members of the RICO enterprise all share a common purpose, to enrich themselves financially and sexually at the expense of producers, musicians, writers, creators, and artists by maximizing defendants' revenues through fraudulent means. As set forth herein, defendants benefited financially from their scheme to defraud plaintiff, by intimidating plaintiff with threats of violence, threatening to eat plaintiff's face, displaying and distributing guns in plaintiff's presence, bragging about having law enforcement under control, bragging about murdering people, and bragging about bribing witnesses and jurors in the criminal case concerning the 1999 NYC nightclub shooting with Shine, threats of isolation from the music and entertainment industry, parading powerful music industry executives such as defendants Lucian Charles Grange, Ethiopia Habtemariam at his parties filled with sex workers, minors, and illegal drugs, such as ecstasy, cocaine, GHB, ketamine, marijuana, and mushrooms, threats of non-payment for work completed, fake promises of cash payments, $250,000, Producer of the Year Grammy Awards, and guaranteed access to future projects. A $20 million case 1:24 CV01457 Document 1 filed February 26, 24 page 35 of 73. If you or anyone you know is being exploited sexually, call the national hotline. As you leave the page, don't forget to hit the like bell and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so as yet. Thank you for watching.